things I was going to talk about, but I did hear back from Marshall that he wasn't going to be able to join us. Did you get a chance to look at that new SABR, I guess, publication that came out about minor league baseball, when minor league baseball almost went bust?
I saw it, but I haven't read it. No, I haven't read
I
it.
read it. It was really, really interesting. You know, and I was thinking about Tommy Brown passing away, and how back years ago, former major leaguers would, make their way to a minor league team and then stay for years, after they had a sometimes long major league career, but lots of times a brief major league career, but then ended up on a local team that they liked and just played minor league ball for years and stuck around. There's a lot of that talked about in this book, and it goes from 1946 to 1963 is the period they have. And it was just, I thought, a really, really, it was sort of like a digest or a compilation of several different stories and articles. And I had not heard of the Spokane bus accident, that killed several players years ago. And there was another one not long after that one, like 2 years to the day after, that killed a few players. And you think about these teams now, how many flights they have. And over the years that, there've only really been two incidents like that where teams got significantly wiped out basically by traveling accidents. So I wasn't familiar with that. So that was, but they're really well researched articles in there. And there's like 20 or more different ones in there. So I read through it. And it's type 2. You can read a couple one night and set it down, pick it back up, when you're between other things. But it reminded me a lot of some of the stuff you do on your podcast, little known stories from minor league affiliates like Nashville. They didn't have much on Nashville in there.
If they're little known, I make them up.
Yeah, they did mention some. They mentioned, who was it? The minor league home run the professional home run record that was held for years, and they talked about everybody that had hit over 60 homers. So they mentioned Nashville in there, Bob Lennon, and so.
Last week I went to Buckshot Brown's visitation. There weren't very many people there. I had put together some stories that I had published and also some others that were on SABR, like his game that he was the second youngest minor league player after Joe Nuxall, and of course the youngest to ever hit a home run. And I guess that'll be a record that'll stand. And put some photographs, some team pictures in there of the balls that they didn't have, and handed that to his daughter. They're spread out. He was in Florida when he passed, but so it was a long time to live. What, 93 years, I think?
Yeah, I think you and I had maybe talked once before about him. I was always wanting to talk to him, but never could locate him.
Yeah.
And I think you were the one said he was maybe in a retirement home in Florida. And
of course, Farrell Owens used to try to stay in touch with people like him and other old ball players. He came back after he retired. They had the City League and the Tri-State League in Nashville, which were you could play in after you had left professional baseball after 2 years, and you had to sign a form that you'd never go back and play pro ball again. So he and Larry Taylor, a lot of those guys played in the City League or the Tri-State League, and he coached amateur ball. I've had several that have asked me if I had any pictures of him in the early days when he coached some of these youth teams, because they played for him or their cousin played for him, and so it's just quite a story.
I did talk at one time to Joe. I think he pronounced it Bauman. Around here, we had that name, and most of them called it Bowman around here.
Bowman.
Maybe that was a Cheap Hill, Tennessee pronunciation, but he was one of the most interesting and characters I ever talked to do an article. It was back when Bonds, I don't think Bonds had passed him, but it was pretty inevitable that he was. Or he only passed him by one. Bauman hit 72. But it also, in this book too, also talks a lot about the old system where, you know, players were indentured to these teams forever. So Bauman, you know, left baseball and was running a gas station for a couple of years, and he got an offer from the Braves to come back, but whoever it was he was affiliated with wouldn't release him, you know, so he's just stuck till they let him, you know. It lets you know how far the pendulum went from back then to what it is now, I guess. But those guys, and then he could make the separation sometimes between what a top AAA player made and a lower major league player made. If they had a good gig local combined with their AAA or whatever they called the highest level then money, they could make more money in the minor leagues than they could in the major leagues. So they stuck around. I still hadn't heard from the guy, so I don't know. He's got a book. The book he's written is called Baseball's First Superstar, The Lost Life Story of Christy Mathewson. Guy's name is Alan Gaff, and it's published by University of Nebraska Press. Originally, when I first reached out to him, it was supposed to be released today, but now they're saying it'll be released on May 1. And I went ahead and pre-ordered a copy. He wrote a book about Lou Gehrig as well. Lou Gehrig, The Lost Memoir. And I think that's sort of what this is. This book is based on some memoirs that Mathewson's daughter, I think, found after he passed away. And he somehow, this guy, somehow another got access to him and wrote this book. And he works for, or he has a company called Historical Investigations, and he writes mostly on the Civil War and things of that nature, but he's like a lot of historians, baseball fan, and picks up on stuff like that from time to time. I don't see him trying to get in, so and he hadn't responded back to my email. So I guess anything anybody wants to bring up, we can talk about. Or Peggy, if you're serious about doing your softball thing, I would love to see it.
I don't know if anybody else would, but if we get desperate, there are some baseball. There truly are some Major League Baseball references in there. But we'll see where the conversation goes.
And I heard you and Skip talking about retirement. I'm coming up on almost 2 years, and I tell people every day when they ask how it is, I don't know how I got anything done when I was still working, because it just seems like there's something every day that I take care of, or maybe I just get it done more timely now than I did when I was retired, or it just wasn't a priority when I was working. I don't know, but still, it's great. I'm enjoying it, and I'm sure you will too. I was up in the Commonwealth a couple of weeks ago. I think I told you, antique hunting, and then my dad was with the Corps of Engineers 40 years on the river, and I always like to see where the Cumberland and the Tennessee meet the Ohio, and go up around there to Paducah. So it's a good little trip, and Paducah's a neat little town. Well, it's not that small, but it's a good little town.
Yeah, it is. So you picked a good one. It's become more interesting. They had a minor league baseball team. They had some along the Paducah Indians. I can't remember what it was called. There's a book out about Paducah and baseball. I have on my library shelf somewhere. I haven't really gone into it, but yeah, Paducah, highly recommend if anybody needs a little day trip, weekend trip. It's very artsy. It's a small community, but it's a fun place.
We usually go over into your area. We go up 65 to Bowling Green. That's a good little trip. From Pleasant View, it's just no distance at all. And they got a lot of antiques there as well.
Including me.
You know, our friend Kevin McCann has written a lot about the Kitty League, which would have included Paris, Tennessee, and of course Fulton and Mayfield. I mean, on up into Ohio. I mean, excuse me, Indiana in particular, a little bit of Illinois, Cairo, I think. So if you can ever get him over here, he knows a lot about it. He's written a book about the Jackson Generals, but I think he's trying to publish something about the Kitty League now. He did publish the Arcadia publication many years ago. I wanted to show you this. As soon as someone, can you see that?
Yeah.
Tommy Brown. Well, you know, as soon as, this is horrible on my part, I guess. As soon as I've read where he passed, I never had an autographed ball by him. I've got balls, baseballs signed by different people, but mostly that I acquire myself so that I know they're real. So if you go on eBay when somebody gets sick, well, excuse me, or they pass, before the person that's selling them realizes that they passed because the price is going up. I mean, I think that was $22 or something like that. But you know, you try to find something Ricky Henderson has signed. Holy smoke, you're going to pay for it. So I found a few things that had Tommy Brown's autograph. I just never had because I'd only met him once. That was at a Metro Archives for a baseball spring event where they brought some of the old players, even Butch McCord and other Negro leaguers. And I met Tommy Brown, came there, and I said, "Buckshot." He just grinned. He said, "Yeah." So I think that was about 2007. And it wasn't long after that he moved to Florida, I think due to his health. So.
Yeah. Hey, I see Dave is on. Hey, man, I hadn't seen you in a while since we were having actual face-to-face meetings. You doing okay?
I'm doing all right. It's good to see everybody. Sorry, I was bouncing around having some tech issues myself, and I didn't even realize I'd joined this meeting because I thought I'd fill all my sessions, and I started closing other browsers, and I looked up and I thought, oh, there's people watching me. So I'm glad I wasn't doing anything, that shouldn't have been captured on video. But it's good to see everybody.
Yeah, I like your cap. I have the T-shirt for the 643.
Just ignore people who ask me what it means.
I'd seen, I haven't been on whatever they're calling it these days, X or wherever I see your Cardinal rants. I haven't, and of course it's the off season. So,
you know, it's funny. I've had to temper that because I've recently joined the board of my HOA here.
Yeah.
And found out one of my board colleagues is a niece of the vice president of legal affairs for the Cardinals. And so I thought, gee, if I ever want to leverage that connection there, I better dial down my public rants around about the Cardinals because that, might come back to bite me. So anyhow.
Hey, Skip, I know you and I are probably the only two, but I really, I told Lamar Bradley this, that I thought the Old Timers Banquet was my all-time favorite one. Yeah. Really good. We had y'all had Don Mattingly, and I wasn't sure what to expect, but I thought he really had the perfect feel touch for he didn't talk long in his prepared remarks and then did Q&A, and he was just so genuine and humble, but not he realized, hey, I was a pretty good ball player, but but you talking about Ricky Henderson reminded me of the Mattingly talk, because he got fairly emotional talking about Ricky Henderson. He said that Ricky was hands down the best player he ever played with, and I loved his story about going to Ricky's workout weight room.
Oh
But,
yeah, all that weight equipment, he didn't use it. What he did, 100, what was it he said? 100
um,
push, he ran,
100 push-ups and so many wind sprints.
and that's all he
That's
did with
all
all
he
that,
ever
with
did.
all that equipment in his basement. He said
Yeah.
thought he was going to be showing him how to work out on that stuff. He was excellent. He had told us, number one, he has too many handlers. And Tony Rankin, our president, my cap's off to him because he put together a wonderful banquet. We had 500, and we gave away about 60, 50 because we had scholarship, had 16 scholarship winners and their parents. And then we had some of the media. So 500, 440 were paid, and that's pretty good. We paid him his fee, but we were told by one of his handlers he would never sign any autographs the whole time. We were told by one of the other ones that we'd have to work out a private signing before, and he would not stick around after the banquet. He would walk out of the hall and go back to his room. None of that happened.
No.
We did a private deal with the board members and a few benefactors. He also said he did not want to do a talk. That's why I was blessed to be able to do the Q&A with him, just
Mhm.
facilitate it. It was no big deal on my part. But when he said he would not do a speech, as soon as Bob Jameson, the old radio guy for the Sounds, that we acquired him just the day before or 2 days before to come in and introduce him, Manley took the microphone and started talking, and then he realized he was supposed to do a Q&A. So when I got up there, he'd already kind of started, but he didn't need me. He could have stood up there and talked and talked and talked, and he did talk and talk as long as anybody wanted. We were supposed to stop at 8:30. We stopped at 5 till 9. Questions kept coming from the field, and he was just dynamite. And when they said that he was going to leave as soon as the banquet was over, he probably stayed another 30 or 35 minutes
Mhm.
to sign things. And people had asked us what he would be able to sign, and we told them nothing.
Mhm.
So we guess we turned some people away from that, but he signed. He was as cordial. I think what you see is what you get with him.
Yeah. He also, a couple of things that I really, from a Nashville standpoint, he talked about how growing up in Evansville, his parents were able to watch him play more during his days in Nashville than at any other time. So he thought Nashville would always be, it always had a special place for him. And, I love what he said about his dad, that his dad never criticized him ever
Yeah,
after a game. And then he paused and said, now, the flip side of that, there wasn't a lot of praise that went along with it
yeah,
either. But
yeah,
I just really, I guess you never know, y'all as the board know what you're going to get till they get
right,
there, I guess.
right.
And, but I was just, I had heard all that too, that he was going to pop in, do his talk, get out. And I'm not a big autograph seeker anyway, so that wasn't a deal breaker for me. But I saw him signing, and Carter Garner, my buddy, got a bat signed,
Good.
and I was real pleased for that because Carter's been suffering for some health issues and
Yeah.
actually,
Oh,
unfortunately, early stages of dementia. But he
oh,
he really enjoyed it, and he hasn't lost his touch about getting autographs. So it really meant a lot. But of all the ones I've heard, and I've probably, I'm a rookie at this, I guess. I've had what, 87 of them now. I've been probably to the last.
the first one.
I missed Tommy John, but in the last 10 years, I've probably been to them. And Mattingly was hands down the best
Yeah.
one I've been to.
Well, Harmon Killebrew was still my favorite, I guess. But it was kind of a step up for us at the time when we went for a Hall of Famer, and I still appreciate how gracious he was. He stayed for an hour and a half after the banquet and signed and signed and signed. In fact, I was standing there next to him, and he looked up at me and he said, he got a bat in his lap, and he said, I'm talking to this guy. I'm signing this bat for him, and he's asking me questions that I talked about in my speech. And I asked him if he heard my speech, and he said, no, I just got here. And so I told the guy he had to leave. Harmon gave him his back. Mr. Killebrew gave him his bat back to him and said, I'm not signing anything. You didn't buy a banquet ticket. In those days, banquet tickets were $35. Now they're up to
Yeah.
$100. And, I thought that was pretty nice of him to do that instead of just signing just signing anything that came along. So
Well, in that guy's defense, I noticed that a lot of people that stood up that listened to Don Mattingly still ask him questions that he had
well,
actually covered in the Q&A.
well,
But
we
that,
may have had a few that snuck in. We had a couple of security people there that I think enjoyed the banquet a little bit more than they were supposed to be out in the hallway, but they were enjoying their meal and listening to him too. So, but that's all right. It worked out good. I don't know if you remember Crazy Kyle? Crazy
oh yeah,
Kyle
he
is
said, yeah, he said at the table with us.
he's the organist for the Predators, and he's done some for the Sounds. And I had three grandsons there who are all big hockey fans, but they love baseball too. So when I went up to them after it, I said, "How'd y'all think it went?" And they said, "Can you introduce us to Crazy Kyle? We'd like to get his autograph." So I couldn't find him, so I sent Kyle a note, and he said, "Well, next time y'all are at the hockey game, just you know where I am, just come over, and I'll sign something for him." So
Yeah.
I,
Well,
I
I
asked
actually
Pete,
had,
I asked Pete Weber. I said, "Give me something to ask." Because he could not make the banquet. The Bills were playing, and he was he and his wife are big Bills fans because they used to live up there, and they had an event that night for that. And I said, "Hey, give me a question to ask," and he said, "Ask him when he started pulling the ball." Okay. So when I did the research on Mattingly before, it turns out one of the early things that he learned about baseball was playing wiffle ball in the backyards with, he had three brothers and a sister. The older brother passed. And he said, "Yeah, the crazy thing about that wiffle ball is down the right field." Was it right field? And he said, "There's a tree there." So I learned how to hit to the left to hit around that tree. And then Lou Piniella got him changed his stance a little bit. And that's when he started hitting home runs and pulling the ball down the left field line. I thought, Pete, you did me good there because you gave me a question to ask, and it was really kind of a technical question. I'm not that smart. I have to ask other people what to ask. So it was kind of interesting that he went into that kind of a detail too. I mean, that's just how down to earth he was. It was just really,
mhm.
really enjoyable.
Yeah, it just, and it was cold, it's like single digit. And I thought, well, even the folks that bought tickets might not show up, but the place was packed. So it was great. Um, you was talking about,
And it was a new venue. The Music
mhm,
City Sheridan was just wonderful to us. The Sonesta where we'd had it, the old Marriott, told us that they wouldn't tell us until June or July what dates they had. So Tony got on the ball and went to other venues. And when they gave him a date immediately and a price, he signed the deal, which he has the right to do. And I told Doug Scopel at the Sounds, I said, "We've moved our banquet." And he said, "Why'd you move it?" And I told him that story. And he said, "That doesn't make me very happy." He said, "We moved all of our visiting players to the Sonesta and out of town people because of you guys. Y'all seem to have a great relationship." And I'm going to call. Well, I want you to know the next day, Tony said the Sonesta called him and apologized and wanted to know if they could redo the deal. And he said, "No, you told us you couldn't give us a date, and we needed to know." So that was a good thing.
yeah, it worked out.
Yeah.
Everything seemed to, of course, I'm just attending, so that's the easy part. And I know that's such a massive undertaking to pull something together like that. You never know what little thing's going to throw it off, but I thought
It was
it
good.
couldn't have been better.
Tony's
Uh,
dynamite. Tony Rankin. He's a uh, counselor, a therapist. He was on the staff at First Baptist Church downtown up from the arena with the old steeple still there. That's Crazy Kyle, I think, is the organist there, and a couple of the security people from church were there. He organized those guys, and he raised money because we had to have extra money, and he raised just about all of it to pay for Mattingly without us having to dip too deep into our treasury. There's some, but anything that we make from the banquet, we give it back to the community for repairing a fence or repairing a tractor or buying a new tractor for amateur baseball. So it's a worthy cause. So glad you were there.
yeah, yeah. Um, and again, how many? 16, you said the scholarship? How many?
Yeah, $32,000. We raised that money. We were really, we try to do 30,000 or so. We were a little under budget. Our golf tournament didn't raise quite as much. We filled the golf tournament. We didn't get as many donations as we had hoped. But, so we always have a carry over from the year before. So we dipped into that a little bit, but we gave 16 scholarships at $2,000 apiece, and they don't have to play ball. They just have to be sure that they're a member of their baseball team. Have to be a senior. So that's about $750,000 in 27 years.
Mm.
So just for that, I'm a proud member. I think you can tell. I love it.
Are those scholarships, are they recurring? Like, is it a one time 2,000, or do they get so much per year? Or
No, they get $2,000 at one time. All they have to do is by August the 15th, they have to send us an acceptance letter from the school that they're going to attend. And then the money does not go to them. It goes to the school directly to put in their account. We've had some money returned to us because the kid either dropped out of school or even didn't start. We've had some parents get a little upset that they thought they were going to get a check, and we don't do that.
No.
And we've had some that never sent in their acceptance letter. We also, I think I'm letting the cat out of the bag. One time we gave a scholarship to this kid, and Rip Ryman was our scholarship chairman at the time. He's since is deceased. He was a scholarship chairman for years. And he stands up with whoever the speaker is, comes down and gets their picture made, handing the certificate, not the money, but the certificate to the kid. And then Rip would always stand next to him. He said, this kid got his picture made, and Rip said, what position do you play? And he said, I don't play baseball. And we realized at the time that in the scholarship application, it never said that you had to be a baseball player. It just said the Old Timers Baseball Association was giving scholarships to senior high school seniors, not high school senior baseball players. And we kind of do that in advance. That's why we have to have a letter from the coach that says, yeah, he's on the team and we'll be playing in the spring, because we're giving it to him, to seniors now before the season even starts. In most cases, before practice even starts, I guess. And we had one from Portland, Oregon one time. And the president asked me, he said, I've got this application that this kid sent me, although they come to scholarship chairman. And he said, can we give this kid a scholarship in Portland, Oregon? I said, well, sure you can, but it's $2,000. It's going to cost him $2,000 to get down here and accept it, because that's one of the things. You have to be there unless you're playing a basketball game that night. Oh, I mean, common sense. Think about it. So anyway.
Yeah, those things, some things you shouldn't have to write down, I guess. But yeah.
Well, Tony said he had one that came in this year because we finally, for the first time, put the application process online. So the kids could scan their information, or their parents could. I'm sure the parents do a lot of it. And there was a lot of incomplete information. So Tony called the guy. And when I was the chairman, I never would call them back if there was a mistake. If they didn't have all the information, I didn't call them back and say, you need more info on this thing, because it, states on there very clearly what you have to have. He called this kid back, and he said, the kid argued with him, said, it doesn't say that on the application. He said, well, it says you have to have your, I don't know, ACT scores and your GPA and a letter from, and the kid said, it doesn't say that on there. Tony said, yes, it does. And the kid hung up on him. I thought, hey, that makes no sense. That absolutely makes no sense.
Oh, gosh.
What do you, Peggy, my heart goes out to you from what you must have put up with. I get it. I get it.
That reminds me of some of the job interviews I conducted over the years, and was flabbergasted at the stuff people said or demanded during the job interviews. Parts of things that don't miss about working. But,
yeah, when an 18-year-old asks you if you have a retirement account, if you put, deposit into their, that drill. But
All right. Let's see. I hadn't heard back from the guy, obviously.
I do want to make one comment, though.
Yeah.
Everybody's got something baseball in their photo, in their image here. And Dave Roberts, besides his cap, I don't see anything baseball.
Okay. Not my desk clock.
Oh, hey, I got that same clock.
Another little ornamental thing here, and another one here. This one will hurt you if I threw it. Oh, wait a minute. Pencil holder.
No.
Let's see. Oh, little thing, bat and glove, little statuette thing. So the desk has some ornamentation. The back there, not so much. That's in that room.
Well, I can't
Yeah, and
match
I've got
Go
I've
ahead.
got a Crossley Field picture over there, but you can't see it from where I am. So I'm legit.
And Dave, I can't match you, but I don't know if I can turn it and show you. No, I can't turn it that far. I have one ukulele hanging on the wall here. So I can't match you with the 6 or 8 guitars you got back there.
That's one instrument I haven't mangled yet. So let's continue to try that one.
Yeah, but it just kind of hangs over. Well, I have a
I
keyboard.
forgot my Hawkins Field turf. Got that too.
Oh. Yeah. Well, I
Did you
don't
go
know how
last
much.
night, Dave? Did you go last night to the Vanderbilt? Dude,
I did not.
I didn't either. Wish I had. But
I saw there's some new white pinstripes coming this year. So that'd be another interesting look. Looking forward to that season starting in a few weeks and getting back out there and enjoying Commodore baseball. It seems like since I've been forever since I've attended one of these, and even I think the last time I did, we were talking Nashville expansion or potential for Major League Baseball. Is that still a topic we talk about? And I'm wondering if the heat that felt like Nashville has diminished some in the last 6 months. I'm not sure if it has or not. I know there's the thing around the WNBA and conversations around whether that's taken some of the focus off of baseball or not. And I think there's some other cities who have really come forward with really strong proposals, ownership, stadium plans, all that may have Nashville pushed down the list a little bit. Just curious what people think.
Well, Skip knows more about that obviously than I do, but I thought if it were up to Don Mattingly, we'd have a team. He mentioned that at the banquet the other night, but
well, I tried to veil that a little bit because the Sounds had given us some money. Tony had gone out to the Sounds and said, "Here's a former Sound. If we bring him in, maybe we can get him to go out to your stadium and talk." They didn't want to do any of that, but they did give some money towards it. But the Nashville Stars group also bought a table. So at the end, I told him I had one last question. I left out the LA Dodgers, but I did say something like, "Okay, I get the last question." He went, "Uh-oh." I said, "Well, uh, New York Yankees, Miami Marlins, Toronto Blue Jays, Major League cities, Nashville." And he took it from there, and he was pretty positive. He's all about it. So
he didn't mention. I was wondering, whether he plans or would like to manage again at the major league level. I think he it's kind of tempered his remarks a little bit about his time in Florida, in Miami. I don't know whether that soured him on it forever, but he seems to have a pretty good gig going there in Toronto, so maybe he's going to stick with that. I don't know.
I went down to the Stars office the other day. They are so proud of their new logo. They're proud that Major League Baseball helped them get new era caps to make them some caps. They paid somebody big bucks that used to work, and maybe he still works at Nike to design that. I'm not crazy about it, but they're spending some bucks somewhere. I don't know where the money's coming from, but they're trying to operate like a big league team, and they've got a wonderful newsletter that comes out every week. But it talks a lot about commerce and economics in Nashville, and they even put a thing on their Facebook page the other day about the WNBA expansion possibilities. So, but I don't know anything about them. I know the people. I give them information. I don't give them advice. They don't ask me for any. if they ask me who was the best Negro Leagues player in the 20th century, I mean, I'll give them my opinion, but that's about it. So I think we're a long way off. I just hope I live long enough to see a game here
Mhm.
Me too.
without being rolled in.
Yeah.
Like a walk into a newspaper.
I remember getting excited about it in the late 70s and early 80s when Nashville Sounds were doing so good after they launched. They were talking about Nashville, and they were saying in, I think, 8 year, whenever they had the first expansion, was it 92 after that?
93.
Well, I can't wait 10 more years for a major league team. And now here we are, 30 something years, well, 40 years after they were talking about it. But hey, speaking of that, I thought it was good to see Larry Schmittou there as well. Um,
Well,
he,
yeah, for the first time we honored professional players. We've always talked about honoring amateur Hall of Famers, and someone came up with the idea this year, which is pretty good, to include guys that did not come back from professional and play amateur like I talked about before, but were truly professional. So we honored Roy Pardue from the 50s. Roy Pardue passed away some years ago when they opened the new ballpark in 2015. He was there with 3 other Nashville Vols players. And we honored Mike Willis, who played at Vanderbilt and played Toronto and a couple other places. He lives in Houston. I was unable to attend. And we honored Wayne Garland. Wayne's taking care of his mother, and she's 92 or 3, and he just doesn't come out in public very much. So we honored those 3. And because of Willis and because of Garland, who Schmittou also coached, we asked him if he'd come in and introduce him. I thought he did a great job.
I did too. Talking about Vanderbilt baseball, of course, Coach Corbin was there, and Mattingly was real heavy in his praise of the players that come through Vanderbilt and make it to the major leagues. He said they always do the right thing, throw the right base, they're where they're supposed to be. They know, he can tell that they've been well coached when they get there.
Well, there's always some difficulty with that. Not difficulty, but Dave Jarvis was there from Belmont, and Jeff Forehand from Lipscomb, also D1 programs. And I don't know if he just wasn't familiar with those guys or not, but and I understand the praise for Tim Corbin. But in fact, I went to Lipscomb's banquet Saturday night at on their campus, and they had Buck Showalter, which was great. And Showalter did a Q&A. He didn't do a talk, but he was good. And somebody asked him about Nashville, and he said, I'd love to see Nashville because I think his wife was from here. Farrell Owens used to say that he introduced Showalter to one of the Soundettes, which was one of the female ticket takers and ushers in the short shorts and the halter tops with the Sounds logo on them. And he did. He said that. He said, yeah, Farrell introduced them together. And somebody said, well, what about Nashville as a major league city? And he said, yeah, but I'd love to see him call them the Sounds. So, but he was good. And then I missed the Tony Vitello. Sunday night was at the Lovelace for raise money for the new Lawson High School, which was the old Hillwood High School. And I don't know, I think that was a sellout. I don't know how many can get in that venue, but I understand they raised a lot of money for that, which is great. I'm sorry I talked too much. This is like normal.
Oh, me too. I just, kind of feel like, this is I don't know if y'all know, Skip and I have been talking, and I kind of tried to be the leader here. And this is my first meeting and had the big technical glitch. So, but anyway, maybe I'll get the hang of it by the next quarterly meeting. But it's always good, even if you don't have a speaker, I guess, to just talk about baseball. But I I did want to mention that minor league book. If you get a chance to download, you can download that for your Kindle too. It's makes it easy. What I like about the Kindle too, you can highlight the word and get a definition. Don't have to go grab your dictionary every time. And you can highlight in it too and go back and look stuff up. So try to use some of that. Maybe turn it into a blog post later on or something. And Skip, you're still doing your podcasts. I enjoy those, and I like seeing that Nashville Vols memorabilia you put up on Facebook.
Most of those are recycled. Those come up on Facebook as a memory. I just download them and recycle them again. My son sent me, he and his wife love to go antiquing, and he sent me this pic. Hold on a minute. He sent me this picture of a baseball. It's a milk glass baseball that I've collected. It's a bank.
Oh,
They gave them
yeah.
away at the ballpark, or I don't know. They sold them back in the 50s. That was not in very good shape, but I got 3 or 4. Some are better. But he sent me one that was pristine. A picture Sunday. They were at an antique mall in Murfreesboro. It had $150 on it. So I've got several of these. Just and my Venmo is. If you'd like, I'm just kidding. Or you can just write a check and I'll send it right back to you. So I thought that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think I've seen that one at 150 up in Murfreesboro.
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah, my great aunt was a big Nashville Vols fan and had a bunch of memorabilia, and one of her nephews, I guess, got most of that stuff. I did get one of the miniature bats, Nashville Vols miniature. She gave me that before she passed. So, and I think she had that bank there as well. She also worked for Aladdin. So Bob Tillman would work there in the off season. So she would get me, and then he wound up with the Braves. So at one time I had a Bob Tillman autographed card, but I don't know what became of it.
Bobby Tillman went to Isaac Litton High School, was an excellent ball player. He hit a home run in his first at bat, I think in Greensboro. And when he went up to the majors, he hit a home run in his first at bat. And I bet you there's not anybody that did that. There's a recent book that came out through a SABR publication, something about first time home runs.
Yeah,
and I had sent Jacob a note at SABR about that, and he made mention to it, not in the book. I think they'd already gone to publication, but he said he thought the same thing. He wondered if anybody else had ever. I just came across it by mistake, quite honestly. He was a heck of a ball player.
Yeah, that's kind of tough to think about doing. I mean, you get one shot each way. I mean, it's like the guy, who was it that I can find it here because I talked to him. There's a guy who hit a home run in his first at bat, which is not, I mean, not that uncommon, but he hit a home run in his last major league at bat, which is pretty uncommon because I guess most of the time when you think about hitting home runs, if you hit one in your last at bat's a home run, you figure you're going to be around a little while, I guess. Yeah, but anyway, those were the only 2 home runs he hit, and they were like 5 or 6 years apart. He hit a home run, I think, with the Yankees, 66 in his first at bat, and then with the Dodgers in his last at bat in 69. Let's see if I can find that guy's name. I thought Jason Hayward might have a chance to do that after the Dodgers let him go, but he ended up catching on with who did he finish up with this year? Houston? John Miller is that guy's name that hit the home run in his first at bat and last at bat. And then he went to play in Japan the next year because he got in a contract dispute with the Dodgers. But and he said he finished the season on deck. The guy made an out if he it might not have happened if the guy hadn't made an out right before him. But he was an interesting character to talk to.
Have you been to Carter Garner's house in
Yes.
Murfreesboro?
Yeah.
Yeah. He invited me and Lamar.
Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And
Carter.
I'm sorry to hear that I didn't see him. I'm sorry to hear that his health is failing a little bit.
Well, I talked to his wife, Karen, a month or so ago. They called to see if we or Sean, our son, would be interested in their Titans tickets for that Sunday. And we couldn't go, and Sean was in Florida. But anyway, I asked how they were doing, and I had heard from other people that, they talked to him and were concerned about him. But she told me that he had really started to go down. But as soon as he saw me, you never knew any different. But then he did not know my son at all, which was kind of astounding because he watched him grow up and but yeah, he's got baseball cards, he's got autographs, he's got that Hall of Fame bat, and I mean, he's got everybody on there from Ted Williams up to Ricky Henderson, probably.
Pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm. And Lamar's got quite a collection, but I think he's kind of in all of Carter's collection. Yeah. Carter, I was at an event with him years ago where Gaylord Perry was speaking, and Carter always pushed it to the point that he would tell me, if they don't ask me to leave, I haven't asked for as many autographs as I could get. So I thought maybe Gaylord was going to come in with some chin music on Carter there, but he left with a bunch of autographs. It's fun. Yeah, I heard Skip ask you, Peggy, how Tom was doing. Has he ever joined us on one of these virtual ones?
I don't think he's ever done that, but when we would meet in person, he would come with
yeah.
me.
Oh yeah, I used to see him every time.
He's hiding in his office doing something else.
Is he also retired?
Yeah, he retired long before I did.
Okay, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, when we moved up here to Bowling Green, he retired from UT. So yeah, he did the practice, and now I know what to expect. Just use him as my role model.
That's good.
For what it's worth, I have a Weezer record back there too.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's more important than baseball, of course.
For what it's worth.
Is that vinyl back there, Dave?
Yeah, it is, and this wall too.
Yeah, reminds me of my younger days when I was in radio. It was, of course, all vinyl. There's some movie on last night where they were shooting a scene in a radio station. I thought I wouldn't know which direction to go if I went in a radio station today. The technology has changed so much.
Yeah.
What is vinyl?
I remember when our son, we were looking for something in the attic or something, and we stumbled across some albums, and he picks one up and said, "What is this?" And I said, "Well, that's music, And he said, "Really?" So we still had a turntable. I took it down, put it on. He goes, "Man, all the music should be like this." And I said, "Well, we kind of moved on."
20 years ago, a friend of mine, his daughter was in middle school, I think, back then. And she came home and said that her teacher had pulled out one of these really big black CDs today and played it on something.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Mhm. Yeah. I was like, I had a coworker that had took her nieces somewhere for the weekend. And when they got home, their mom, my coworker's sister, asked her how it went. And she says, "Oh, it's great." And said, Ain't Lori's got the neatest car. It's got this crank. If you want the windows down, you have to turn it.
Yeah.
So,
Good times.
I think the biggest thing culturally that our son, he just don't deal in cash. He's never, everything's card. It's just he's never uh, wanted. Even when he was little, though, if his grandparents or people gave him money, he had like a dry erase board on his door, and he'd go up there and add $20 to it and give it a total. And if he wanted a video game or something, he'd get it, and then we'd get it for him, and then he'd go up there and subtract the amount. He never cared to have the actual money. When I was a kid, I liked having that money. Of course, you couldn't pay by card, debit, and everything now. And then the merchants too, they kind of look at you funny now, like they'd rather you use the card instead of the cash.
Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of because I think if you give them cash, and if you really do like old guys like we do, you give them cash, and then you give them some coins with that, so you're getting back $1 or whatever,
Oh,
and have them watch them try to make change from that is a bit of a game. Do it for sport.
Yeah, the Hot Rod Stadium went cashless this past year. So I guess that's pretty common.
Yeah. A lot of places went that way during the pandemic, but then I think they thought, hey, this is a pretty good way to do business. Yeah. And it is convenient. I like, my wife and I do card to pay, but we still give cash tips at restaurants because we want to make sure the servers are getting it all, and not having to pay any taxes on it maybe, but we like doing cash tips.
So anybody got any projects they're writing right now? Any book projects amongst the group?
That's a good question. I've reached out to 3 players for SABR bios, but I haven't gotten any confirmation back from them yet. Ron Reed, and then Brad Comments. There's a name of the past Braves phenom that, yeah. And then the other one, Ron Wright. That name probably. Ron Wright played one major league game, I think, for Seattle. He struck out, he hit into a double play, and he hit into a triple play. That was his major league experience.
He might hold that record too.
Yeah, I know. So maybe he's not so interested in having a bio on the SABR bio project, but it's funny. I feel like I got time to deal with this, and now I can't get any takers. But and I get down these rabbit holes on newspaper.com looking these guys up, and from everything from games they played in, where they played in high school, to reading the ads, in the old newspapers. But that's, I've got that. I'm working on that, and then I do my blog every week. And I also want to write a non-baseball thing that's more of a. I had 40 years in public health and environmental health, and I think I could turn that into something if I worked on it. I could probably work some baseball into it. I seem to be able to work it into everything I write. So, how about you, Peggy? You working on anything right now?
I just had 2 bios for SABR for a book on the 1945 Cleveland Buckeyes in the Negro League. 2 chapters in that one that's going through the editing things now. I think I finally passed through the fact checker, so sort of like a rodeo, put my hands up. I always end up with pictures for some reason. I don't know why. And now I have a new one. They're doing a book on the 1931 Homestead Grays, and I have another picture, Oscar Owens, that I'm just before we got on the call, I was working on him. His nickname was Cannonball, although I've never seen any reference to it. That's according to Seamheads. But sort of circling back to the softball thing, my great uncle was a men's professional softball player in the 1930s. And that's what my presentation was about. And so I had a soft spot in my heart when I saw this guy's name was Cannonball, because that was my great uncle's nickname back in the 30s. And anyway, but this Oscar Owens guy was very interesting. He was like born in 1895, and he was still pitching to some degree for various teams in the 40s. I mean, they called him the Iron Man. He pitched back-to-back games for the Grays and won both of them. I mean, he was incredible man. And I don't know, he was small. He was like a little fire pluggy kind of guy. I have no idea, from not what you would envision. He was on, I don't know, 5, 6 or 7, I don't know. But anyway, but that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay.
Peggy, I still have dreams of writing my Beatles and baseball book that
Okay, I think you should.
I created enough of a framework and an outline of the dates involved, but really hadn't moved to develop it, and I'm going to regret this at some point, not pursuing that.
Well, you'll do it.
Do
If
it.
you feel passionate about it, you'll do it. You'll make it happen.
Yeah.
And Hugh, your blog is excellent.
Oh, appreciate
Cheap
it.
Hill 44. I always enjoyed reading that. Yep.
What I've been looking for lately, I'll get down a baseball rabbit hole on eBay even, but there's some wonderful old baseball postcards of old, even minor league parks and stuff around out there on eBay that really are nice to look at. I saw one on, was it Ponce de Leon Park in Atlanta, and some place out in the Redbird Park. I think it was in Ohio somewhere. Just really, really artistic postcards of minor league ballparks, because and that comes out in that SABR publication too, about how these communities really embraced the teams, and they were proud of these teams, so they had these postcards. So when people visited them, I was thinking maybe I was, born 30 or 40 years too late, because there were so many minor league ball teams back then. Even I could have probably played minor league ball with so many teams around. I don't know. But I talk about, you're talking about writing and Beatles and baseball, Dave. You can always work baseball in there. When I was growing up, books like Old Man in the Sea were baseball books. The Great Gatsby is a baseball book because they talk about the 1919 World Series in there. You Can't Go Home Again by Thomas Wolfe has a baseball player as one of the major characters. So, I think a lot of these writers, they subtly let us know that they're baseball fans too, So,
modern day Stephen King, Clancy, they all have, baseball bent to their writings, right?
Yep. John Grisham
Grisham,
yeah,
right.
they'll work them in there. Yeah.
Yeah, Garrison Keeler, the
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Lake Wobegon Whippets.
Yeah. I saw a Whippets jersey online, but it was a little pricey. But I thought that would be good to have too. Um,
I love him. I could read
yeah.
everything, listen to everything he's ever said or written.
I went over to the Ryman to see him a
Yeah,
couple of times. It was just
yeah.
really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love in the Old Man in the Sea where he'd like to take the great DiMaggio fishing, because he understood his dad was a fisherman, and the kid, he fears the Indians of Cleveland and the Tigers of Detroit or whatever. And the old man says, "Oh, before it's over, you will even fear the Reds of Cincinnati." It's just good stuff. And you can tell what I remember about this literature, but so you can get your Beatles and baseball in one book, Dave.
I am so real quick, the concept and the mindset I have around this is the Beatles played probably about 10 to 12 concerts actually in Major League Baseball stadiums. So the notion is to kind of look back at each of those dates, kind of what was going on from the Beatles story, that playing those venues, but then also looking at the baseball side, what was going on with the baseball team that year in that particular park where they played, and tell the story of what was going on with the team, what happened that date, because obviously they were on the road or an off day. They're all summer dates. They're all dates that would coincide with the baseball season. So I just think it can be an interesting thing. It might be nichey, to some folks, but I just think it's an interesting idea to tell those two stories, date driven, venue driven, over the course of about a 2.5 year period when they played in actual MLB stadiums.
Oh, yeah.
Perfect.
I think your Venn diagram of audience would have a big intersection there.
Well, I may get re-energized on it now that I've brought it up publicly again. So
yeah.
What's your
That's
don't hesitate.
That's right. What was it? Stephen King's got a book on writing. I read a bunch of books on writing, and he and Walter Mosley, I think, their books on writing are real, real thin. And they basically preface it by put down these books and start writing. It's like you just got to start.
Yeah.
So,
I write every time I write Dear Mom, because somebody told me that one time, write like you're writing a story to your mom, and then I go back and take that part out. But you could do the same for your dad or your brother or Dear Commissioner. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Yeah, that might run on for a while. I'll tell you, I got on a rant on this golden at bat thing they were kicking around a month or so ago. Do you familiar with that? Any of y'all?
Yes.
Dreadful.
I mean, why?
I had a long conversation about that.
That's crazy.
Why even call it, baseball? I just, and, I think I did, I wrote a post about it. And when I was growing up, I played Stratomatic baseball all the time because, I'm going to be the manager and all. But, I even thought when I was 9 or 10, hey, I'm going to keep Joe Torre out of the lineup. But when the first chance that comes up with a bunch of runners on base, that's when I'm putting Joe Torre in. So it's sort of the golden at bat concept, but I was doing it within the parameters of the rules, that I couldn't start him. And then I either had to leave him in the lineup and take some, to do it. And even at 8 or 9, I figured this is just not very efficient, and maybe one of the reasons Joe Torre is one of the reasons you have scoring opportunities is he was in the lineup to start with. But to just think you could say, well, it's the 7th inning and we've got the bases loaded. I'm going to send Ohtani to the plate, and he may have just batted, and then I just, and Manfred, the blowback was pretty quick, and he acted like, oh well, um, it was just talked about. It's a long way from something like that happening. And I thought, yeah, the last time I heard that saying it wasn't gonna happen, I turned on the TV and there's a runner at second base starting the 10th inning. I just that's one of those where they floated out there, and it's still, that idea is probably still alive. But and that gets me going too on how much is gambling affecting these rule changes?
Oh, 100%.
You
Yeah.
know, do so, and then that gets you down the thing they're all in bed with the gamblers, but then they're going to keep all the, so, it just branches out and out and out. But
on the football side of the fence, I think it was Troy Aikman this week that said something about there's so many people gambling and so much money on the line, making a dig at the officials, need to get these calls right.
Yeah.
And so for him to say something like that, it kind of brings back in your comment about, gambling in baseball, because baseball's opened the doors to it now.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of turning it into from a game to a game show. So like, it's like, who wants to be a millionaire? And you always have like, well, you can phone a friend, or here you can have a golden at bat. It's just, I don't get it.
That's a great idea. Give a fan in the stands the opportunity to insert a substitution in the game.
Yeah. Have Lou Piniella phone a friend. Oh, yeah, Lou Piniella, he would go for that. Yeah, I'm sure Lou would. But yeah, I mean, I think Peggy, the game show atmosphere, I think, is the best analogy I've heard, because, they break down to the small screen with the action so they can show all the odds and things you can bet on over here on the side. It just, and there's just so much money involved in that. But yeah, for Aikman to have said that out loud on the air, to me, that's the least of my concern, is whether a bad call caused somebody to lose a bet. I mean, that's why they call it gambling.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big tennis fan. I watch tennis all the time. I still play tennis. I play old lady tennis, but in watching, I don't know, this past week or so, they've already 3 or 4 men's players have been caught up in a match fixing thing. You can bet on, at like at the bottom of the screen, is he going to hit an ace? Is it going to be how many games, how many points? And it's we've lost the plot on a lot of this stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, when are the news stories, documentaries going to start about all these people losing their houses on all this easily available betting they can do?
Oh, if you ever watched The Daily Show, which if you don't, you should watch The Daily Show, and they have a sort of a fake Sports Center segment where it's sports. I can't remember the name of the sketch, but it's something like sports brought to you by gambling. Gambling. Yes, you too can lose your house before the end of this game. Is one of their sort of catchphrases. It's horrible.
But that golden at bat just, to me, rang the bell real quick about, hey, that sounds gambling related to me. There's so many possibilities there to turn the game.
I'd like to know what the demographics are. I mean, I don't think we're the audience for that. And I certainly think it's part of gambling, but I'm wondering if younger people, if it's trying to draw younger people in, what they would say for like the 18 to 27-year-old, is it more appealing to them? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I think sometimes some of these things are made, and I'm no longer the audience. I'm no longer in the demographic for the decisions at Major League Baseball. They either bring to the forefront or make. they know that I was not a fan, not me. My demographic knows that putting this man on second base after the 10th inning is that's just nuts. I mean, we had ghost runners when we were kids, but that's because we didn't have enough players.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were perfectly fine with investing 3.5 hours to watch a baseball game on a Tuesday night
Yeah.
until they came along and needed to speed up the game to get back down to under 3 hours. Now, there's a lot of nights I said, well, that was 3.5 hours of Cardinal baseball futility, and I never did that time. But we were fine with it.
And NBA is talking about, changing the length of quarters, 10 minutes. It's our attention span is like, oh, look, a bird, kind of thing.
How many people are sitting in the stands doing this?
Yes.
Yeah.
And doesn't it kill you when they're right behind home plate in the most expensive seats, probably in the stadium, or they're either on their phone, or the people who take their phone and watch the game on their phone, like they take a picture of the action when they could actually just be watching it. I don't understand that.
That's being in the moment. There's that whole thing about being in the moment. And I find myself guilty of it too at times, but I have to remind myself is get back into the moment and put that stupid thing down.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot to tune in. Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, Skip, you mentioned the ghost runner. I tell people when they refer to that guy in the 10th inning as a ghost runner, I said, hey, wait a minute. Our ghost runners in the pasture had to earn their way on base. So those are really not ghost runners. Those are, I guess,
gotcha.
Phantoms, I mean, but yeah, we didn't just say, hey, we're going to pretend there's a runner out at second base. That guy, you had to get on second base before you could have a ghost runner on second. So
the Southern Association experimented in spring training in about 42 or 3, and surprisingly, Larry Gilbert and somebody from Birmingham came up with the idea for putting a man on first instead of throwing 4 balls to him, which was kind of unusual. It didn't last because there was a lot of controversy about it, and I can't remember the details, but they had a lot of stuff. It was mostly they would put a man on who could hit potentially a home run. In fact, somebody asked Buck Showalter the other day. He's maybe the only manager that walked Barry Bonds with the bases loaded. Somebody asked him about that. So, but that's not a new concept. I don't think the golden at bat is a concept that came from anywhere except the boardroom of Major League Baseball or FanDuel, maybe. I don't know.
Hey, talking about walking him with the bases loaded. It's one playoff series against the Pirates, I think, early when the Braves turned it around. Bobby Cox kept walking Bobby Bonilla to get to Bonds, and it infuriated him so much that he swung at the first pitch and popped it up like the 2 times that he did it. It just like he played that psychology on him, we're going to walk the guy in front of you to get to you. I think that it's almost like, Major League Baseball knows they feel like they've got me. They don't have to worry about what they have to do to keep a fan like me. So they don't, it's like they don't concern themselves what the core fan wants. They've got us, or think they do, but I tell you what, there've been a lot of things that have happened. The extra runner there to start the inning, little things they've done. The universal DH, I'm sorry, I just don't like it. I mean, I don't.
Neither.
But I tell you what, the golden at bat may be the deal breaker for me. That may be the day I turn it off and never watch it again, is if they put something in like that. Some of these rules they put in, I wish, like I don't like banning the shift. Just sort of it bothers me that the hitters come up there and swing and hit the ball right into the shift. But I understand that a little bit. I would think, hey, they're giving me half the field, take advantage of it. But anyway, that doesn't bother me as much. And then the 3 batter minimum rule, I don't like having that. You shouldn't have to tell a major league manager that, but it had just gotten so prevalent that every time, so I see those things. And the 3 batter minimum actually, as opposed to, say, the universal DH, introduces maybe a different line of strategy into the manager's decision rather than completely taking out when to pinch hit for your pitcher or something. So, I'm a little more on board with that than I am some of the other stuff. But like I said, the day they do that, now I think there'll still be I'll still be a baseball fan because I'll be interested in the history of the game and reading about it and all of that if they come up with something so bizarre. But that golden at bat rule, I mean, that they even said it out loud is just astounding to me. That's like something kids do out on the playground. It's like, hey, we get to send our best hitter up right now. And I don't think when I was growing up, we ever did anything that bizarre out on the field. You get just anytime the bases are loaded, hey, call in the best hitter to hit. It just,
You think of the self-esteem of the poor guy who gets substituted
yeah,
because
yeah,
Otani is the guy you want to hit right now. That poor guy's self-esteem will be shot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm just holding this spot in the order till it becomes important. It just, but it's just so anti-baseball. I mean, or whatever. I mean,
We've become the get off my lawn crew, and that's the
oh,
saddest part about it, is that we are no longer relevant from a demographic standpoint. The things that we all grew up loving about baseball, a lot of them have just eroded away, and we're grasping, trying to hold on to things, and the powers that be are yanking those things one by one, and it's when you lose your joy and the passion that you have for that game that we've all grown up loving. I mean, I think we all have that universally in common, because we all do things like this. So we've had that love and passion for the game, and we just hate to see the things that we loved that caused us to gravitate to it just be eroded.
yeah.
A lot of just nonsensical rules, changes.
And it's, I remember going to the first live baseball game and in the 60s and early 70s, going to the park. The baseball game was the event that you went for. There weren't all these things going on around the park. And I see this during the games now. I thought, who pays for a ticket to a Diamondbacks game, but then hangs around in the pool in the outfield the whole time? It's that. So, but I guess, there are people who pay to do that. So, they've got those people paying money to get in where otherwise they may not. But I just, it's sort of self-insulting, if that's a word, to say you've got to have all these gimmicks to get people to follow your game.
Prime example is First Horizon Park. When you can go to the game, you have to pay to get in, maybe not, but you pay to get in because you live in the neighborhood, and you spend all your time playing shuffleboard while the game's going on, or sitting at the bar out there in right field with your back to the game. Now I think you can see them on the screen on the television, but I don't really understand that either. My prime example to that is when I was a kid. I remember my granddad taking my brother or my cousin and I to a game, and boy, we could smell that popcorn and those hot dogs, and we wanted something to eat. And he said, not until the 7th inning stretch. And we weren't too happy about that, but I think I understand what he was trying to do, is get you to watch the game, because he would tell you about the right field at center at Sulphurdale, and the game that was going on, the players and that kind of thing. I'm sure we got a Coke and a bag of popcorn at the seventh inning stretch, but still to this day, for me to remember that means something, that someone understood there was more to it than what else was going on off the field.
I'll share this, which probably told this years ago because Hugh and I made the connection. But the very first ball game I ever went to, I was a few weeks from turning 8 years old in Atlanta on a Sunday afternoon. And I shared this story once upon a time about going to this game that turned into be a doubleheader between the Braves and the Giants. And my dad didn't know there was a second game. We didn't know there was a second game. We got up left after the first game. And I wanted to see Willie Mays in center field. So we bought center field seats. Willie Mays didn't play that game until about the 8th inning, came in and went to first base. Now, of course, Hank Aaron was in that game, and there were other Hall of Famers there then too. And so we left after a 12-inning first game. And thanks to Baseball Reference, years later, I found out that there was a second game, and Willie Mays hit a home run in the second game. So missed that whole thing. But the real interesting thing about all that was, as I told this story, Hugh said, "Well, I was there with my family that day."
Yeah.
So, I'll tell you the date. It was July 18th, 1971.
Yeah.
So,
We used to go down. They would do a weekend each summer where it was usually the Giants and the Dodgers. I guess that's a big draw. They would actually change the series after Saturday. So you could go down on Friday and see the Dodgers on Friday and Saturday, and then see a double header with the Giants on Sunday. So you saw those teams, and yeah, I was there. We left pretty soon after the Mays home run because, like you said, the first one went on. Talking about all these rule changes, Skip, my wife Laura said they're just turning MLB into the Savannah Bananas with these types of things.
I saw where there's a new team I can't think of the name of it, that's emulating the Savannah
Mhm.
Bananas. So there's somebody else that's picked up on that too. So it's
Yeah,
barnstorming at a different pace, I think.
yeah, and they're coming to Nashville, and the Sounds actually had a lottery to get tickets because they're selling out in advance. Same way with the Bananas. I mean, if you don't get the tickets 6 months in advance, you're not going to see them.
well, the
But I
Bananas are
mean,
playing in Nissan this year, are they not?
the what?
I think the Bananas are playing in Nissan's stadium this year.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's fun. But you know what you're getting. You know what it is. It's like you might see some good baseball players, like watching the Globetrotters. They're incredible athletes and great basketball players, but you're not really watching a real bona fide NBA game when you go to see it. But you know that going in, and it's there for the entertainment value. But all right. I don't know, Skip, you have more experience at this than me. I know SABR
Just-
gave us a 2-hour block, so
Yeah.
I don't
Just
know.
turn it off.
They'll just cut us off. Okay. Yeah, getting out's a lot easier than getting
I don't-
in, probably.
I don't
Hey,
know.
again, guys, I enjoyed it. I appreciate y'all's
Good job.
patience. I hate that this happened to me on my first one. And the guy finally, he emailed me back and said that he was prepared to do the first hour and he spent a while getting in and they had to leave. But since his book isn't coming out till May, I may try to get him set up for the next one, and maybe learned how to get in. I really don't think, I mean, it was me, obviously, because I was trying to get in, but I think they left a digit out of that, and the passwords are not something like Braves 44, like most of mine are. It was capital V, lowercase, so it was easy enough to leave that out of there, I guess. But also, I'd like to maybe explore the possibility of some of us getting together for an in-face meeting and then lunch afterwards, like you used to organize, Skip. So maybe I'll kick that around between now and the next meeting or something. So I appreciate, again, everybody joining. I enjoyed it. I could sit and obviously talked baseball all day, and we didn't hear from everybody on the call, but I appreciate everybody joining, and hopefully next time we won't have as many glitches. If we meet in person, maybe if I give the right street address, Waze will get us there. So anyway, all right. Well, it's good to see
Good
everybody
job.
and talk to everybody.
Okay.
Y'all have a good day.
Bye.
All
Thanks.
right. Thanks a lot. Bye, y'all.
Bye.